Welcome to SS2 Christian Religious Studies. This lesson explores the Christian understanding of social justice, what the Bible teaches about justice, the Church's responsibility to society, and how Nigerian churches engage with issues of poverty, inequality, corruption, and human rights. The concern for social justice is not a modern addition to Christianity, it is rooted deeply in both the Old and New Testaments. Old Testament prophets. The Hebrew prophets were among history's most powerful voices for social justice. Amos 5 verse 24, "But let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never-failing stream." Amos was speaking to wealthy Israelites who exploited the poor while maintaining elaborate religious rituals. He declared God's rejection of their worship without justice. Isaiah 1 verse 17, "Learn to do right, seek justice. Defend the oppressed. Take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow." Micah 6 verse 8, "He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God." This verse is often cited as one of the most concise summaries of prophetic ethics. Proverbs 14 verse 31, "Whoever oppresses the poor shows contempt for their Maker, but whoever is kind to the needy honors God." This prophetic text established that justice for the vulnerable is not optional charity but a fundamental obligation, and that injustice toward the poor is an offense against God Himself. Jesus' ministry placed care for the marginalized and vulnerable at its very center. Luke 4 verses 18 to 19, Jesus' inaugural sermon in Nazareth, quoting Isaiah 61, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because He has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." Jesus then declared, "Today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." This passage establishes that Jesus saw His mission as encompassing not just spiritual salvation but liberation of the poor and oppressed. The Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5-7, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are the merciful, blessed are the peacemakers, the Beatitudes affirm the value of the vulnerable." Matthew 25 verses 31-46, "The parable of the sheep and goats, the criteria for judgment is whether people fed the hungry, gave water to the thirsty, welcomed the stranger, clothed the naked, cared for the sick, and visited the prisoner." Jesus identifies Himself with these vulnerable groups. "Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." This is one of the strongest social ethics passages in the New Testament. The early church in Acts practiced radical economic sharing. Acts 2 verses 44-45, "All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need." Acts 4 verses 32-35 repeats this, "There were no needy persons among them." The early church established the diaconate, the office of deacon, specifically to ensure the fair distribution of food to widows who were being neglected. Acts 6 verses 1-7. The letter of James, James 2 verses 14-17, challenges empty faith. "What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them? Suppose a brother or a sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, 'Go in peace, keep warm and well fed,' but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead." The church in Antioch sent relief to the believers in Judea during famine. Acts 11 verses 27-30, demonstrating early Christian transcultural solidarity. Nigerian churches have played significant roles in social development while also facing criticism for areas where they have fallen short. Positive contributions: education. Mission churches established most of Nigeria's early school system, and Christian institutions like the University of Nigeria Nsukka and many secondary schools continued this tradition. Healthcare. Mission hospitals and clinics were established across Nigeria in the 19th and 20th centuries. Poverty alleviation. Many Nigerian churches run food banks, orphanages, widow support, scholarship programs, and microfinance initiatives. Areas of critique and challenge. some critics argue that the prosperity gospel focus on personal wealth has distracted the church from systemic justice concerns, that some church leaders have aligned themselves with corrupt politicians and power rather than speaking truth to power as the prophets did, and that inequality within church communities, between wealthy members and the poor, contradicts the early church model. Nigerian church leaders who have modeled prophetic social justice: Bishop Samuel Ajayi Crowther, first African Anglican bishop, former slave, who advocated for the abolition of the slave trade; the Catholic Church's role in critiquing the military government during the 1980s and 1990s; Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, advocacy on human rights and against religious violence. Today we covered that social justice is deeply rooted in biblical teaching. Old Testament prophets, Amos, Isaiah, Micah, declared that justice for the poor is fundamental to worship and obedience to God. Jesus' inaugural sermon, Luke 4 verses 18 to 19, established his mission to the poor and oppressed. The parable of the sheep and goats, Matthew 25, identifies Jesus with the hungry, the stranger, the sick, and the prisoner. The early church practiced radical economic sharing and established the diaconate to care for the needy. Nigerian churches have contributed to education, healthcare, and poverty alleviation, while also facing challenges around prophetic witness, corruption, and inequality. For your essay, use Matthew 25 verses 31 to 46 and Luke 4 verses 18 to 19 to explain Jesus' teaching on the church's obligation to the poor and marginalized in society.